You'll be fine on your own, my dad said casually before leaving for Europe with my sister. I packed my things and moved out. 3 days later, my inbox exploded. My dad said casually, pulling his suitcase toward the front door. His voice was so light, so effortless, that it didn't even register at first. Just one of those phrases adults throw out without really thinking, like telling someone to drive safe, or to have a good day. Except this wasn't a casual errand. This was a 3-week trip to Europe. With my sister. And he wasn't talking to anyone else. Just me. It was early morning. I still had sleep in my eyes, wearing the same hoodie from the night before, and I'd only come down to help with their bags. I thought maybe there'd be a real goodbye. A hug? A thanks? Something. Instead, I got that. You'll be fine on your own. Like I was some plant that just needed watering once a week. Lauren beamed beside him, her passport already in hand, her nails freshly done, undoubtedly paid for with one of Dad's. You deserve it. Gifts. They were matching in a way I hadn't noticed before, coordinated luggage, new jackets, that glow of excitement they always seemed to share when they were together. I must have looked like I'd wandered into someone else's family photo. I nodded, said nothing, and watched them leave. As the door shut, the silence wrapped around me like a heavy coat. Too familiar. Too tight. That's the thing about being the quiet one. People assume you don't mind the silence. But sometimes the silence is the wound. I stood in the middle of the hallway for a while after they left. Just stood there. Something about the way my dad had said it, that casual brush-off, settled in my bones and stayed there. All my life, I'd been the one who didn't ask for much. The one who handled things. Never complained. Never got into trouble. While Lauren, well, she got all the oxygen in the room. Every graduation, every recital, every story at the dinner table, she was the headline. I was the footnote. She was the princess. I was the guard at the door. But guards get tired too. And in that moment, something inside me didn't just snap. It shifted. I walked upstairs, opened my closet, and pulled out my suitcase. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew it wouldn't be here. That was day one. And it was only just beginning. Packing didn't take long. When you've lived your life not taking up too much space, you don't leave a trail behind. A couple of boxes, my clothes, my laptop, and a handful of things that felt like mine, not gifts, not hand-me-downs. Just mine. No note. No announcement. I didn't even tell my boss I wouldn't be coming in on Monday. I just stopped showing up. That first night, I drove out to a quiet little town a few hours away. I checked into a month-to-month rental I'd found weeks ago when things started to feel heavy. I think I always knew, in the back of my mind, that one day I'd have to go. I just never thought I'd actually do it. The first few days were still. Not peaceful. Not yet. But quiet. I left my phone on, mostly out of habit, but I didn't respond to anything. No one even seemed to notice I was gone. That's the thing about being invisible. You can vanish and no one will realize until the lights start flickering. Then came day 3. It started around noon. My phone buzzed once. Then again. And again. By the time I picked it up, there were 9 unread messages. Then 13. Then 17. I didn't open them. Just watched the numbers climb. By the afternoon, my inbox was a war zone. It started with a message from my dad. "Where the hell are you? This isn't funny." Then came another. "I told you we'd only be gone for a few weeks. You didn't have to freak out." Followed by Lauren. "Can you please just answer? This is getting ridiculous." And then the relatives started chiming in. Aunts. Uncles. Even my cousin Matt, who I hadn't spoken to since high school. They all wanted to know what was going on. Why I'd left. Why I wasn't answering. Some messages were dripping with concern. Others with frustration. One of my uncles accused me of being cruel and dramatic. My dad's third message just said, "You're being selfish. You always were." That one made me laugh. Because if I'd ever been selfish, they wouldn't have had so much to lose without me. I didn't reply. Not to a single one. I just sat there on that creaky old couch in my tiny new place, phone in hand, watching them spin themselves into chaos. Like pulling a card from the bottom of a house of cards and watching the whole thing tremble. They weren't used to me making noise. But silence? My silence? It was louder than anything I'd ever said. And I could tell, they were starting to panic. By the end of that day, the messages stopped asking where I was. They started asking why. And that's when it got interesting. There's something surreal about watching your family unravel from the outside. Like standing on the other side of a two-way mirror, watching a conversation you were never meant to hear. My cousin Tara sent a screenshot of the group chat my dad had started. It was supposed to be a damage control effort, but it turned into a blame game within 20 minutes. My father opened with, "He's just trying to guilt us." Classic attention-seeking. Lauren chimed in, defensive. "He's not like that. Maybe he just needed space." And then my aunt, his own sister, replied, "Maybe if you hadn't babied Lauren for her entire life, he wouldn't have felt like he had to disappear to be noticed." That shut the chat down for a solid hour. Then came the personal messages. My aunt reached out privately. "We always knew you were the one holding things together. I'm sorry we didn't say it sooner." I stared at the screen, blinking. Holding things together? I hadn't even realized they saw it too. Then came a message from my cousin Jeff, blunt as ever. "What did he say to you before he left? Heard he told you to handle things like usual." I didn't respond, of course. But I sat with that for a long time. They were starting to piece it together. Not just what happened, but why. And the more they talked amongst themselves, the more it all surfaced. Years of imbalance, of favoritism, of quiet exploitation disguised as responsibility. One message from my mom's cousin stood out. "You were always the backup plan." I noticed that. I just didn't want to interfere. Backup plan. Those two words hit harder than anything else. Because they were true. Every late-night phone call when a bill was due, every cancelled plan when someone needed a ride, every, "Can you just do us this one favor?" I was the default. The fail-safe. The one they didn't worry about because they thought I didn't need anything. And now? Now that I was gone, they realized how much I'd been holding. The cracks were showing. One by one, their stories about our perfect family were beginning to split at the seams. And I hadn't said a word. The next morning, there was a knock at the door. Not a text. Not a phone call. An actual knock. I wasn't expecting anyone. No one knew where I'd gone, at least I thought no one did. I peeked through the blinds and saw a figure pacing on the front step. Arms crossed. Ponytails swaying with every anxious shift of her weight. Lauren. Of course. I didn't open the door. Not right away. I stood there, just out of sight, and watched her try to rehearse whatever speech she had planned. She looked rattled. Good. Eventually, I opened the door halfway. She jumped a little when she saw me. "Hey," she said. Her voice was soft, softer than I'd heard it in years. Like she wasn't sure which version of me would answer. "Can I come in?" I didn't move. "Why?" She shifted her weight. "Because Dad's losing his mind. He thinks something happened to you. And I just wanted to talk. Just us." I let her in. Not because I was ready to forgive her. Not because I wanted to hear what she had to say. But because part of me wanted to know if she even understood what she'd been a part of. She stepped inside and looked around the apartment like it was a crime scene. "So this is where you've been?" "Yeah," I said. "Nothing fancy. But it's quiet." She sat on the edge of the couch, her hands clasped. "Look, I know things have been uneven between us. I know you think I've had it easy. You have had it easy." She flinched. "Okay. Maybe I have. But I didn't ask to be the favorite." I raised an eyebrow. "You sure acted like it." That hung in the air for a long moment. She looked down at her hands. "Dad shouldn't have said that to you. About being fine on your own. I didn't even realize it until you were gone. But when he said it, he meant it like it was your job to be okay. It always was, I said. That's the point. Lauren swallowed hard. They miss you. No, I said calmly. They miss the version of me that made their lives easier. That cleaned up the messes. That paid for things without asking. That stayed quiet so no one else had to. She didn't argue. She couldn't. Then she tried the last card she had left. Just come home. Please. We can talk about all of this. I shook my head. I am home. And I meant it. This bare little apartment, with its creaky floors and thrift store couch, it wasn't much, but it was mine. And it was the first place I'd ever been that didn't ask me to carry anyone else's weight. Lauren stood. Her eyes were glassy now. They're going to fall apart without you. I opened the door. Then let them. After Lauren left, the messages turned, desperate. Not angry. Not demanding. Desperate. My dad sent a string of emails, one after another, like he thought if he changed the wording enough, one of them would finally earn a reply. The first was still puffed up with authority. This stunt needs to end. You're acting like a child. By the fifth, his tone cracked. Please, just let me know you're okay. Then came the voicemails. My mom, who hadn't said a word to me in months without it being filtered through Lauren or Dad, left a message that caught me off guard. Her voice was soft. Hollow. I didn't realize how much you did until you weren't here to do it. That one I played twice. But I didn't reply. Not out of pettiness. Not even out of revenge. It was just, silence was the only thing they ever really listened to. They didn't hear me when I was helping. They didn't hear me when I was struggling. They didn't hear me when I tried to ask for less, or just a little space, or even recognition. But now, every missed call, every unanswered message, they felt it. Like a weight they never noticed until it was lifted off my shoulders and placed, finally, on theirs. They were falling apart without my quiet compliance. The group chat turned into a feeding frenzy. Accusations flew. One aunt blamed my dad. Another said Lauren was too spoiled. My dad fired back with old grudges from decades ago, things no one had mentioned in years. Secrets surfaced. Things I hadn't even known. Turns out, I wasn't the only one quietly holding everything together. Other relatives had been burned before, pushed out, minimized. They just hadn't said anything. Until now. I watched them unravel like an old sweater, one stitch at a time. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Because this was never about revenge. This was about absence. And how powerful it becomes when it's the only thing you leave behind. The thing no one tells you about being the quiet one, the reliable one, is that over time, people stop checking if you're okay. They just assume you are. Because you don't complain. You don't raise your voice. You don't cause trouble. They see your stillness and mistake it for strength. And eventually, they begin to build their lives on top of it. Looking back, I think that's what happened. Not all at once. Not with a plan or some grand betrayal. It was slower than that. A creeping kind of erosion. Every time I paid a bill without being asked. Every time I offered to help so no one else had to. Every time I swallowed my own needs because Lauren was going through something. They started depending on my silence to make their noise feel normal. I'd become their scaffolding. The thing holding up a structure that never really supported me back. And like scaffolding, I wasn't meant to be seen. So when I stepped away, no fight, no shouting match, just gone, they didn't know what to do. They had never prepared for the possibility that I might choose myself. I think part of them still believed I was bluffing. That I'd come back eventually. That the messages, the voicemails, the family fallout would wear me down. But what they didn't understand was this: silence had always been my language. And this time, it was intentional. I didn't move out to make a statement. I moved out because it was the first time I realized I could. That I didn't owe them my peace just because they never learned how to create their own. My landlord, a kind older guy named Dennis, asked me once if I was running from something. I smiled and said, "Not running. Just done carrying." It was a Thursday when they showed up. I remember because it was laundry day, and I was halfway through folding shirts on my tiny couch when I saw the car pull up through the blinds. Dad's SUV, the one I helped him buy 3 years ago when his credit was shot. I never put my name on the paperwork. Should've. Maybe then he'd have thought twice before using it to drive Lauren to the airport. The knock came fast. Heavy. Like he thought volume would fix everything. I didn't answer. A second knock, this time softer. Then a voice, Lauren's. Please, just talk to us. I stayed still. They didn't leave. After 5 minutes, I heard their voices drift through the thin door. No yelling, at least not at first. Just the rustle of movement, and the low hum of 2 people trying to figure out how they'd gotten here. Lauren kept saying, "He's not like this. Something must have happened." And my dad, my ever-practical, stubborn father, just repeated the same thing in different forms. "He's being dramatic. He'll come to his senses. He's not like her." That last one made me pause. Her. I leaned in, just a little. "I told you this would happen," Dad muttered. "If you kept pushing and letting him see too much, he was always close to your mom's side. I should have put distance sooner." Lauren whispered something I couldn't hear. Then my dad said, low and bitter, "If he opens that door, everything falls apart." And just like that, I understood. This wasn't about concern. It wasn't even about guilt. It was about control. About the delicate illusion that had kept everything running, me, quiet. Me, present. Me, invisible. They weren't here to apologize. They were here to restore the system. I didn't open the door. I let them stew outside for 15 more minutes before they finally left, muttering, frustrated, still convinced they could fix it. But they couldn't. Because I was no longer a part of the machine they'd built around my silence. And without me, the gears were grinding themselves to dust. The next few days were quiet again. Not peaceful, not yet, but different. A hollow kind of quiet, like when a storm has passed and you're left surveying the wreckage. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel powerful. I felt unburdened. For the first time, there were no late-night texts asking for favors, no passive-aggressive guilt trips, no sudden, family emergencies that only I could fix. No expectations hanging over my head like unpaid debts. And as the silence stretched, they started to realize what they'd lost. It wasn't just my presence. It was the little things, the things they never even noticed until they stopped happening. No one remembered to schedule Dad's doctor appointments. No one reminded Lauren to pay her credit card bill on time. No one fixed Mom's broken sink or dropped off groceries when she couldn't make it to the store. They lost the person who filled in all the cracks. The one who remembered birthdays. Who showed up when no one else did. Who sent the "just checking in" messages when family members got quiet. Who made sure the group chat didn't go silent for too long. In a strange twist, my cousin Matt, who barely spoke to me before, started sending the occasional message. Nothing deep. Just, "You good? Still out there? Miss seeing you at Grandma's." And my aunt, the same one who once told me Lauren just needed more help, sent a single line that stuck with me. "You were the only one keeping the peace. We didn't see it until the peace was gone." I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, but because she was right. And letting them sit in that absence was the only way any of it would ever sink in. The longer I stayed silent, the louder everything around me became. Not physically, no. My little apartment was still as still could be. But the noise came in waves from the outside, the texts, the voicemails, the sudden appearances in my inbox from people I hadn't spoken to in years. And yet I didn't respond. Not once. Because that was the point. They didn't want to hear me, they wanted to fix the shape I left behind. They wanted the version of me that folded his feelings into neat, quiet corners. They didn't want an actual conversation. They wanted me to play my part again. But I wasn't that person anymore. Lauren sent me a long email. 2 pages, single-spaced. She tried everything, nostalgia, guilt, even a bit of manufactured vulnerability. "I miss how we used to talk. I didn't realize I was making you feel small. I just thought you were fine. You always acted like you were fine. That line? That one hit like a dull blade. Because it was true. I had acted fine. Because somewhere along the way, I learned that asking for help wasn't worth the price of the apology I'd get in return. That showing any kind of need would just make me a problem. And I wasn't allowed to be a problem. Not when I was the reliable one. But here's the thing about always being the one who seems fine. Eventually, people stop looking beneath the surface. They stop asking. They stop seeing you at all. When my father finally called again, I picked up, not to talk. I just wanted to hear the silence on his end for once. He didn't yell this time. His voice was low. Tired. Is this really it? He asked. You're just done? I didn't say a word. He sighed. I could hear the way he turned his head, probably pacing like he always did when he felt something slipping through his fingers. You're punishing us, he said. You're punishing the family. Still, I said nothing. You think this silence proves something? That you're above all of us now? You don't get to act like you're innocent, like you didn't have a part in this too. I pressed the side button and ended the call. Not because he was wrong. Not entirely. I did have a part in it. I was the one who let myself get erased, piece by piece, in the name of keeping everyone else comfortable. But silence wasn't punishment. It was closure. For me. The kind they were never going to offer. The kind they didn't think I deserved. After that call, I changed my number. Set up a new email. Blocked them all. Not out of cruelty, but because I realized they weren't asking for me. They were asking for access. And access is something you earn. They never did. And the beautiful, liberating truth was, I didn't owe them a single explanation. The silence they now found unbearable? That was the message. It's been 6 months. No more calls. No more knocks on the door. No more. Please just explain. The messages slowed. Then stopped. Life got quiet in the way I always wanted it to be. Not lonely, just mine.